welcome back to another edition of Research Fantasy Presents our MLB DFS Pitcher Picks for Wednesday, May 3rd, 2017. I'm your host, as always, Nick from CWE on all of your favorite daily fantasy sites, and I'm here to bring you my breakdown of the Wednesday pitching slate. Honestly, at first glance, I was like, alright, this isn't that bad. But it's not that I'm necessarily souring on it, but I just see a bunch of options that strike me as being potentially overrated, and it makes me a little bit nervous. Nonetheless, I think that obviously we've still got a lot of different directions to go. We've got a lot of good options for tournaments, which is what this video is directed at. One guy who's not going to make the cut, but just because of his sheer strikeout upside, Carlos Carrasco. I mean, the Tigers are a tough lineup, as we saw last night with the ace not being able to do much to shut them down. But that's not to say it can't happen. It looks like Miguel Cabrera is headed for another stint on the DL. I haven't seen anything to confirm that other than, he experienced that growing pain again, which is just not a good sign. Anyway, let's start from the cheaper option, move our way back up. And I'm not going to go too cheap tonight. I know in my article I mentioned Nate Carnes if you're really trying to scrape the bottom of the barrel. I don't even really love the play. I do think he's an option against a White Sox team that can be shut down. They weren't shut down yesterday, but they can be shut down. There is definitely a cat behind me. That was really interesting. So I'm going to actually start things off today with Drew Pomeranz. Drew Pomeranz at 8,100 on FanDuel, a guy I liked and won me a lot of money last year with the San Diego Padres because he was pretty cheap, had the pitcher's park behind him, and just did pretty well. Moving to Fenway, had a pretty poor ending to 2016. 2017, kind of hit or miss starts. This Baltimore Orioles lineup is one that's striking out a ridiculous amount against left-handers, is not hitting well against them whatsoever either. It's actually probably one of the better on-paper matchups today. We saw what Chris Sale was able to do to them last night. Obviously, Drew Pomeranz is not someone I'm considering to be in that elite class that Chris Sale resides in, but Pomeranz is a good pitcher in his own right. I think you could be looking at a situation here where he can get 8 strikeouts, give up a couple runs, go 6 innings. That's been the biggest problem for him so far, is he's been unable to go past 6 innings. When he does, though, he's 2-0 with 2 quality starts. At 8,100, I'll take 43 fantasy points. I'm hoping that he can keep the run total down, the strikeout total up, and the innings played up, and we could see him come in near that 50 mark tonight. It's certainly possible, and he already has one good outing against this Orioles team this year. Next up, I'll take a look at Jameson Taillon in Cincinnati in a hitter's park against the Reds. I just like Tallion's talent level. I think that we'll see him start to improve. The things I do like already about him this year, not necessarily a huge strikeout guy, and I'm certainly not saying that that's an overrated metric to use, because it's not, because that's how you're going to get a lot of your points. But sometimes I don't shy away from using these guys if I think it's a good situation, these middle of the road 4 to 6 strikeout a game type guys, because DFS is not it. Yes, it's about how many points you score, but it's ultimately about the permutations you're able to create. So sometimes somebody's salary just ends up sitting at a certain point where it allows you to build the best lineup around him. In cash games yesterday with Chris Sale, it was very, very, very obvious. I don't want to say it forced, but it definitely put you in a position where you were looking at the Yankees because it was a lot of underpriced bats, looking at the Reds because there were some underpriced bats, And when Votto hit the home run, Hamilton had the stolen bases, Gardner went yard twice. Like, it all came together. So something like that's a perfect evidence of sometimes. What if there had been an option at 7K that was like clearly underpriced, like we were dealing with Severino and Vargas on DraftKings a couple weeks ago, where it was just like there's no point in spending up on sale because you're likely to get similar results for a lower price point. So that's where I look with guys like this, and especially on a site like DraftKings, that's where I will consider Taillon because I feel that he's got a stable floor, and I'll take a risk maybe somewhere else with a Carrasco or a guy that has a little bit of a higher strikeout upside. Bad ballpark to be pitching in, but like I said, I think Taillon is one of the better pitching prospects in the majors, and I'm expecting him to come through with something to the extent of 7 innings, 5 strikeouts, quality start, and he should be in a good position to get the win as the team is taking on rookie Davis, who is just not good. Finally, our top pitching option today, I really do like Jacob deGrom. He is the highest priced guy on FanDuel at $11K. Not the same story on DraftKings, not the same story on Fantasy Draft. Both of those sites have Arrieta and potentially Carrasco above him and Marcus Stroman really close. My whole line of thinking with deGrom is, and I know that people will look at the matchups and say, well, the Braves don't strike out much, and that's true, but deGrom's been pretty dominant over the course of his last few games. I don't see any reason not to use him. Already played the Braves once, ended with 40 fantasy points, and that was without getting the win. Bartolo Colon opposite deGrom tonight. I think the Mets should be able to have a field day with him. I know that he did shut them down once already this year, but this lineup is kind of grooving right now, and especially with Conforto in that leadoff spot, it looks really good. So I think there's a good chance deGrom again comes in, does 6 and a couple 2/3, maybe 7 innings, gets you 6 to 8 strikeouts, hopefully gets the win, should definitely get the quality start. Probably the guy I'm going to go to in my cash games as well. That'll wrap it up for today for our pitchers. Thanks for listening. Once again, our top 3 pitchers for tournaments: Drew Pomeranz, Jameson Taillon, Jacob deGrom. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel below. Head over to researchfantasy.com to sign up for our MLB mailing list. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Research and Win. And join us again tomorrow.